Wir beginnen gleich. Warten noch ganz kurz auf die Nachzüglerinnen. Good evening, guten Abend, herzlich willkommen. Welcome to Depot. Ich bin Sarah von Dordrecht und darf euch ganz herzlich willkommen heißen zur Hands-on-Diskussion Orte und Differenzen, Places and Differences. Es gibt einen Livestream, die Kamera ist auf die beiden gerichtet. Ihr könnt nachher die Ergebnisse unseres Schaffens in die Kamera halten, aber das wird alles noch erklärt. Ich darf nur noch auf eine Veranstaltung am Donnerstag hinweisen. Und zwar ist es der 4. Teil unserer Reihe Kunst und Klasse und der heißt Kulturpolitik braucht Klassenpolitik. Und da geht es um Forderungen an die Kultur, wie eine Kulturpolitik aussehen könnte, die Klassenverhältnisse berücksichtigt. Unser Programm geht jetzt noch bis Anfang Dezember, dann machen wir eine kleine Weihnachtspause. Wir freuen uns, wenn ihr uns auf Instagram folgt unter Depot Wien oder ein Newsletter abonniert, der kommt einmal die Woche. Und ja, ich freue mich riesig, dass Tayla und Mikki heute hier sind, weil wir immer Formate suchen, die nicht die klassische Podiumsdiskussion sind, wo es vorne die Leute sind, die was erzählen und das andere sind die Leute, die zuhören, weil wir glauben, das muss man aufbrechen und waren da sehr dankbar, als Mikki auf uns zukam mit der Idee für diese Hands-on-Diskussion und ja, bin sehr gespannt, was wir heute hier erleben und wünsche einen spannenden Abend. Vielen Dank, dass ihr uns da einführt in diese Welt der Maps.
Ja, danke. Ja, hallo. Herzlich willkommen. Ich freue mich sehr, dass ihr alle da seid. Meine Generation ist ja schon im Bett scheinbar, aber ein paar kommen noch. Und ja, also mein Name ist Mikki Muhr. Ich arbeite als Künstlerin und auch als in der Kunstvermittlung am MUMOC, Museum moderner Kunst drüben. Und ja. Genau.
Cool. So I'll switch to English because that's the language I'm comfortable in. Hi, my name is Tayla Myree. I'm a visual artist and historian based here in Vienna. And I'm really excited to be here with Mikki, and thank you again for your invitation to participate in this event with you. And yeah, great.
And thank you for doing this with me together. And actually, I really wanted also to say in the beginning a bit about how it came to the situation that we are now in, because actually I asked the Depot if they would do a presentation of the book I made with maps or drawings I have done, and the layout was done by Susanne Schuder, and who's also here, and actually it's 2 books, and it's a dialogue, it's a conversation between, and I do have maps here. So I have a practice of doing maps to reflect things and also to exchange things, and we made then a dialogue also about, because these maps are not readable. You can't understand everything on this map because it's a very private, personal thing, but anyhow, it's a tool to exchange things. And there's always a rest. And the rest is also kind of something. It's good. So, und wir wollten, oder eigentlich ist die Absicht auch, diese Veranstaltung auf Englisch und auf Deutsch zu machen. Eben, also von wegen Differences and Places oder mit diesen Übersetzungen oder verschiedenen Sprachen auch zu arbeiten. Und ich habe damit auch sehr gute Erfahrungen gemacht bei einem Programm, das dazu im MUMOC gemacht hat, Transient Learning, Lernen in Veränderung. Und das heißt, wir werden Teile auf Englisch sprechen, Teile auf Deutsch. Wir werden uns abwechseln, wir werden nicht alles 1:1 übersetzen. Das heißt, wenn jemandem etwas fehlt, bitte ein Zeichen geben, weil dann kann man das sozusagen nochmal in eine Schleife bringen. So, we try to make this in English and in German, and I think it's something I really want to experiment a bit also, and to take also this time. And I also made the experience with the program Katina Danzo did at the MOMOC, the Transient Learning, Lernen in Veränderung, that when we made tours in English and German, that the people enjoyed having more time to think about things. So it was a kind of spiral thing through spaces. So that's the idea, huh? Yeah. We do that.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good to me.
Genau. Und genau, ich sage jetzt am Anfang ein bisschen etwas über die Veranstaltung, über die Methode und dann wirst du ja mit einem Film und mit der Diskussion beginnen und dann werden wir sozusagen auch mit dieser Hands-on-Teil anfangen. Genau. Wie gesagt, also like I said, so I asked the depot for making a presentation, and that's a good information now for everybody who wants to do a book, because there is a time slot where you can have presentations for your book. So I'm run out of this time slot. So and the Belvedere, the depot, they said, no, we can't do a presentation anymore because the book is already half a year old. So, but then they said, but we are interested in your method with this mapping and to make a discussion about. And I thought, this is the better idea than a presentation. So, das ist eigentlich die viel bessere Idee als eine Präsentation, wirklich hier nochmal einen Schritt zu machen. Und dann haben wir uns auch kennengelernt, auch über Katina und deine Lecture im Belvedere, über Black Feminism und Programm im Belvedere. Aber da magst du
Yeah,
dann?
I can.
Genau.
Yeah, so
Genau.
So like Mikki said, we initially met through Katina, who will probably be here at some point. You guys should say hi to her. She's fantastic. I did a fellowship with the Belvedere this past winter/spring, and I made a Vortrag, so a lecture there called Black Feminism in Austria and Germany, and that's where Mikki and I were able to connect. And also I'm continuing doing some work freelance with the Belvedere now, so I do a tour now called In Focus, Turning the Page, Representations of Blackness in the Belvedere Collection, which is currently taking place in the Lower Belvedere, which has been a really enriching experience, and some of you have already been on the tour, so I encourage all of you, if you have a chance, there'll be some new dates in December as well, to participate in that, so that's how we were able to connect initially, yeah.
Und dann haben wir uns auch unterhalten und festgestellt, also wir haben, ich erinnere das irgendwie so eigenartig noch so I'm interested in places, in public spaces, also und mit meiner, also auch dieser Einladung vom Depot hier etwas zu veranstalten, mit dem Kartieren, habe ich mir gedacht, das ist eigentlich optimal, also to share this space here now and make a presentation and with the mapping. Genau. Und vielleicht nur kurz, bevor wir genau. Also zu diesem Kartieren sage ich später mehr. Sie müssen sich überhaupt nicht vorbereiten. Also ihr müsst euch überhaupt nicht jetzt irgendwas memorieren extra oder so, sondern es gibt nachher diesen Zeichenprozess. Genau. Es gibt nachher diesen Zeichenprozess und in dem dann die Gedanken sozusagen generiert werden beim Zeichnen. Und so, genau. Also das Zeichnen hilft dann dazu. Und eigentlich habe ich auch sozusagen die Idee, es ist heute auch ein bisschen ein Versuch, die Idee, vielleicht überhaupt zu probieren, wie man dieses Kartieren verwenden kann für Gesprächsräume, wo man sich austauscht, also auch in politischen Räumen, wo es auch um unterschiedliche Perspektiven geht. Und die Methode heißt Sich Verzeichnen, Also I can't translate this in English, but sich verzeichnen has two meanings. So sich verzeichnen is on one hand, I register myself in a list, so I put myself within the text somehow. And in German, when you say it in past tense, ich habe mich verzeichnet, you mention that it's not like you wanted it to be, but it's like it is. And that's the kind of release you have with the method, sich verzeichnen, because, yeah, and this I can also discuss later, but this is it's not about to do it exactly the map. And that's something, yeah, about, genau. Okay. Und ich weiß nicht, whenever you feel like you want to say something, you can do it at that moment, huh?
Ja.
Okay, genau. Also jederzeit, das ist das Gescheiteste. Genau. So, also, ja.
To the film?
Anything else?
Yeah, I can just introduce the film.
Okay, genau.
Yeah, so I thought when we were having our discussion about the topic, so places and spaces, I'm really interested in analyzing public space. It's also something really integral to my personal interest, but also my research interest as well. And I thought a really cool way to connect this with the activity that we're doing later on today is to show a short film that I worked on in 2022, which is basically discussing this issue of Confederate monuments in the United States. But from my specific context, I come from Atlanta, Georgia, and more specifically Decatur, Georgia. So if you don't know Decatur, you do know Atlanta, maybe, hopefully. But yeah, it's basically about a Confederate monument in my hometown and how people have basically interacted with this space due to the controversial history around Confederate monuments. And for those who don't really have too much context around Confederate monuments, basically there was the Confederacy in the United States prior to the founding, or like right after the founding of the US, where there was a conflict and civil war between the North and the South. In the South, it is known that basically the South wanted to keep enslavement going and also basically hinder the rights of African American people. Of course, the Confederacy did not win the Civil War. However, there is a big memory culture around preserving the ideology of the representation of the South and the Confederacy and commemorating it and glorifying it, basically. And when it comes to these Confederate monuments, they're not necessarily really old historical monuments. A lot of them were actually erected during the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s in order to intimidate Black people from voting, or to also demarcate a zone where there was Ku Klux Klan activity, things of that nature, so used as monuments to intimidate Black people. And in the US, there remains a ton of them still, and they're a really big point of contention and conflict. And so, yeah, this is just the story of one of hundreds of monuments that are still in public space now that commemorate the Confederacy, that also commemorate a really painful history for African Americans. So, it's a really short film. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to the discussion afterwards. Great. Oh, wow. One moment.
day. Let him have his day.
It ain't my day.
Let him have his day. Let him have his day. Let him have his. Let him have his moment.
I'm just not putting up with it.
Yeah.
Like, you're not putting up with
No. He's showing that. It's just you deal with spirit. You deal with spirit.
This is Nazi Germany right here. Nazi Germany. Book burning.
Yep.
You're part of it.
Book burning.
Get him, man.
There you go.
Get him.
Now y'all have a nice day.
Yeah.
What is your name? What is your name? If you're so bold. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice.
Where's my rock and roller?
Let it fall! The people united can never be defeated. 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 The people.
Great. So thanks. So yeah, super short, super sweet, but perfect for the discussion that we're having. But yeah, first would love to hear your thoughts, invite any discussions, your thoughts around basically the influence of monuments in general, or if you have any questions about this monument, how people interact with public space, things of that nature. So if anyone has any first thoughts or feedback, and we can start a discussion with each other. Yeah.
So it was a government decision to take it down because it says in the text that whoever governor said it has to be preserved or
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what's really interesting is, yes, in 2019, Governor Kemp passed this law around basically the protection of Confederate monuments in Georgia. And so it would make it illegal for any municipality to remove the statues, regardless of if there is a consensus or vote in a municipality about removing it. So what's really interesting about this statue is that it's the most peaceful way a statue in Georgia has been taken down in 2020, because many people actually just went out and removed it themselves or destroyed different parts. Or as you saw with the protest, we decorated the monument, it got ripped off, and then people would come back and redecorate the monument and, interact with it that way. So because it became such a public nuisance to the local municipality of Decatur, they found a loophole in the law, and they made a decision that, okay, we're going to put this statue in storage for permanent restoration, but it's not going to return to public space, but it's basically on the books, basically under repair, restoration, etc. But there's no plan for it to be returned to the public space. So that's how they got around the law. Yeah. So it's a sneaky way, but also effective, and from my knowledge, there hasn't been a challenge to its removal on a legal level. So it hasn't been there. It's been 3 years now, and yeah, so, yeah.
Has there been other municipalities where they did the same?
In Georgia, no.
Okay.
We're the only county to have done so.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Now you're being forced to speak.
I missed, because I'm always late to everything, but in terms of, weren't people like arrested for defacing, or was the municipality quite eager to find a solution and were just waiting for it?
That's also a great question. So the protest that you saw is one that my mother and I organized, actually, together. And it spontaneously happened that we ended up putting all of the posters onto the statue itself. So we're the first people to actually deface the monument, I guess. And there was no legal repercussions because there probably would have been a lot of backlash. They kind of just allowed it to happen because there was emotions at the time were really high, so they probably assessed that it's probably not a good idea to intervene, but we weren't knocking making any serious damage to the monument. We just stuck the posters and things onto it. But no, we didn't get any threats of arrest or anything like that, or charges amongst us. And it's really interesting. I think, the county was trying to find a way prior to the Black Lives Matter uprising to deal with this issue, because as I told you, it was a decades-long issue of this monument being a space of a lot of tension in this community. And so, but with 2019, with the passage of the law, they really felt like they couldn't really do much in order to remove it. But I think they were even more like, okay, we have to figure out a way to deal with this issue now, because it's causing, like you saw in the first interaction, a lot of physical tension between people. So, yeah.
And just a genuine question, like these monuments, who do they actually belong to? Are they always owned by the state, or are some owned by private families?
So that's also a fantastic question. There is an organization called the Daughters of the Confederacy. They've been in operation since the end of the 1800s. And basically the idea is to preserve the memory of the antebellum period of the Confederacy, and basically to, keep that ideology alive of Southern pride and things of that nature. And so a large majority of the monuments that are still present are privately owned monuments that were privately funded by this specific group. And they also have a really big influence, not only with public space, but also policy. So when we're looking at curriculums in schools in the South, they have a really large amount of money to lobby against certain histories being taught in schools, and that's something that is a really big issue right now, for example, in Florida, with basically the controversy around how do we define slavery, and if we're allowed to teach about slavery, if we're allowed to teach about the Holocaust, things of that nature, and the ways in which they're taught. So the idea now is to change the curriculum to explain slavery as voluntary servitude. So that's kind of the change in the curriculum now in Florida when it comes to speaking about enslavement, and also banning critical race theory and all these other discussions. So groups like Daughters of the Confederacy and others who kind of want to preserve these ideologies pour a lot of money into it, not only with public space, but also policy-wise with education. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can you translate what was the curriculum now?
Yes. Like translate to German or just say it again?
Yes, or explain, or I don't know, but I didn't get it.
Yes, I think I'll just try to explain it again, because I wouldn't, sorry. Yeah.
And spoke together somehow.
So basically there's a change in the education curriculum around the terminology of slavery and the history of it. So not explaining it as basically West African people being forcefully taken to the United States, but saying that they were voluntarily coming. So like identifying them.
Voluntarily is like the freiwillig.
Yeah.
Like, yay. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
exactly, yeah.
And the other question is, this organization is called Daughters?
Yes, Daughters.
Why daughters, not sons?
Because a lot of, so actually the organizers are majority women.
Interesting.
That's why, yeah.
Any thoughts about that?
It's not surprising for me personally, in terms of this kind of traditionalist attitude that exists in the South in terms of agreeing to white supremacy is not necessarily only a masculine trait or something that men participate in, but women actively also. So in my experience, it just isn't so shocking that...
No, it's not. It's also not shocking. I didn't thought that women are different, but I'm surprised that they called only daughters and not daughters and sons. So, but don't know.
Yeah, it's just that specific organization is like mostly women who want to preserve this memory, but there's other more right-wing organizations, but they don't have to name themselves Daughters of the Confederacy. It's just the politicians in general. Yeah.
Special form of patriarchat. Like exactly. I'm the daughter of the patriarchat, and I'm gonna save it. So,
I'm just wondering now, who's deciding about the change of the curriculum? Is there not any way of like scientific quality control to the factuality of the content?
So in the US, states have control over state curriculum, and there's federal standards. So there's like basic needs that every child should receive, and those are the federal standards of education. But then the state itself has complete control over how that's going to be given. And as long as they meet those standards, then they can pursue it. So there's this idea of like protecting states' rights to develop their own curriculums, to have control over different facets of the state. So it's really dependent on who people vote into the office. And in Florida right now, Ron DeSantis is the governor of Florida, and he's a very abysmal human being, in my personal opinion. And he's promoting a lot of this rhetoric, but also he doesn't have a lot of opposition. So that's really the core issue, is that there isn't necessarily in his state where they have control over the curriculum. There's not a significant amount of opposition. There is opposition, it absolutely does exist, but a lot of it's coming from outside of the state and also smaller activist groups within the state. But it's not like a huge movement where people are uprising and saying, don't teach my children that slavery was not a choice. Like they're okay, like many people are okay with this, but also there's a large lack of education as well. So, yeah.
I mean, it's just outrageous to me that like it seems so easy to teach something so so unfactual, because there is so much writing and like all kinds of education in the world around this having happened like that. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, but there is also a big movement for amongst Florida educators to come together in order to try to continue to teach these subjects. But it's not just African American studies that's being attacked. It's like queer studies as well, or being able to talk about queer relationships in classes and things like that. But the big issue is that if your certain teachings are now being criminalized. So for example, if you talk about queer relationships in some Florida schools and you get reported, then you can lose your job. There are also professors that teach critical race theory in their universities, and if they're reported, they have also lost their jobs. So this is also an ongoing issue in Florida, but it's due to the laws that were able to get passed because of the people that were elected in. So it's and it's a really big, different dynamic, because states' rights are kind of held up really high in the US. So it's really hard to intervene in that way. So it's really about, unfortunately, changing the minds of people that live there, or encouraging for more federal oversight when it comes to curriculums and not allowing for people to be legally punished with these laws. But of course, there are lawsuits ongoing now about these different topics, and we'll just have to see what they'll result in. But I doubt that they'll favor our point of view. So, yeah, not much hope there.
So in regards to hope, you lived in the US, you lived in Europe, you traveled quite a bit. Do you see spaces being more decolonized in the future? Do you see a positive trend of this happening more?
More what? Sorry?
Decolonizing spaces and reappropriating spaces, like you just showed.
Europe. Yeah, I mean, personally for me, I guess it's a hot take, but I also don't think it's much better here in terms of that, because we're still kind of reckoning with even educating people on colonialism, colonial past, and histories. As I said, I give a tour about colonial histories in Austria at the Belvedere right now, and many people are unaware of the colonial connections and histories that already exist in Austria. There's examples with Germany trying to reckon with its colonial past now, but not in a very successful way. There's conversations around reparations and repatriation happening in France, and that's not going very far. In Britain, it's a resistance to even have this discourse at all. So I wouldn't say that Europe is significantly better when it comes to this decolonial discourse, nor is it necessarily better in anti-racism work either. But I think that, I don't know, actually. I can't answer so confidently. I think there are a lot of people, especially in Austria, that are trying to push that work forward, that are hosting important discussions like the one that took place here yesterday with the Black Voices Vienna, talking about the EU report about Austria being systemically the second worst place for Black people to live in Europe. And they had an open discussion about that yesterday here as well. So people are trying to push for these changes. But I think the issue here is a level of denial that these are problems to begin with. That's kind of like the issue that I run in with certain discussions, is that we don't have a racism problem, we don't see race in Europe, etc. And in the States, we very much see it and we very much debate it. And that's why it's such a constant conversation. And here we're kind of, in many ways, still ignoring it. It's kind of like the elephant in the room, this colonial question. So, yeah, that's my
very
honest
good answer.
response.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you or do you discuss what
do you have some wishes or ideas what you want to put up there? It's still the base standing there, and it's an empty space. So, do you have any plans? What you would like to do with this empty space?
That is a good question. I'm not aware of any big pushes to replace that plot. I also don't think I have necessarily any personal wishes because it's just directly in front of the monument, and I think that right now, more of my focus, I guess, is kind of trying to, for me personally, is to protect us talking about these histories and making sure that people are aware of African American history, how these are like having these things in public space are issues, and there still is the placard that was there to contextualize the monument initially, and I'm glad that that's still there so people know what was there before. But next to the placard there's no monument anymore, but it's good that there's a marker that like this was here and this is what it was. But in the space there's like a big gazebo, and I think the space is used pretty well, and people just kind of sit on it and use it for picnics, which is nice because we don't get out much sometimes. So I'm happy that people have kind of reclaimed that space to be more of like an activated space as opposed to there just being, a monument there. So I'm happy with it personally, Did you want to say something? No? Okay. Okay. Great.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very happy that you shared film, like also in this, how it's now made. So because you think of doing, or you are thinking of how to proceed also with this material, with the film, and to share it here, like in this thing, and I realized that I didn't succeed with my German-English thing, so needs anyone kind of help or kind of to say something again or want to know something again, because of I can't translate your English.
Sorry.
I'm really, but I think, I don't know, so, and it's, for me it's also, to think about a space like this, where one tries also to how to share things, and also with the rests one has to deal with, so I can't understand everything, I do not understand everything. Actually, it's a matter of languages, is a matter of context as well, and how to deal with it. And I think it's really interesting also to reflect on these situations and and find ways to deal with it. Actually, I think it would be that's a way of thing. And also, what I'm really happy about is when we talked in this summer then about places and public spaces, and this idea of mapping, so that one can share now with their own experiences of public space and of experiences of monuments in my experience in my life in different countries, in different cities, and also with monuments. So also to bring these experiences into the space here now, like the space we have here. So for me to talk about spaces or places is also always about speaking about experiences. Because when we are here now in this space, we all have relations to other spaces and we are reminded of. So jetzt auf Deutsch vielleicht auch, ich probiere es jetzt wieder auf Deutsch. Es ist Also ich bin wahnsinnig froh über das Reinbringen von diesem Film und von dieser, wie sagt man, dieser Arbeit an diesem Monument und auch diesem Erfolg eigentlich mit diesem Monument. Und Und für mich ist es auch so, wenn wir dann jetzt hier auf diesem Platz hier sind oder hier an diesem Ort, ist wirklich schwierig mit Deutsch-Englisch. Das ist jetzt sozusagen jetzt auch eigene Erfahrungen reinzubringen, weil wenn wir hier auf diesem Platz an diesem Ort sind, dann wir sind auch immer verbunden mit anderen Orten, mit eigenen Erfahrungen im öffentlichen Raum, eigenen Erfahrungen mit Monumenten, auch in anderen Ländern, in anderen Städten oder hier auch in Wien. Also wir haben auch hier in Wien ja Diskussionen über Monumente und zum Beispiel das auch zu sehen, dass man das schon auch abtragen kann, das ist schon auch eine wichtige Botschaft, die du da hast eigentlich mit dem Film. Genau, I think it's a really important message. So, what you feel? We proceed with the mapping, or you want to? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that, like what you just said, to reiterate, just kind of thinking about your own personal experiences and how you connect your own, like what monuments come to your mind, what, or it doesn't even necessarily have to be monuments, but maybe spaces of conflict that exist in your own experiences, and kind of like take your mind to those areas when you're thinking about mapping.
Ja. Genau. Und jetzt habe ich wieder das Problem, dass ich Mikrofon und Karten gleichzeitig, aber egal, es geht gut. Also die Einladung ist jetzt, Sie können Sie es weitergeben einfach kannst du es weitergeben nach hinten? Genau. Also die Idee ist jetzt, dass alle, ich gebe da auch noch welche her. Genau, das ist super, genau. Ich glaube, du brauchst noch eine, gell? Ja, genau. Dann, so, und auch für die auf YouTube dabei sind, die können sich auch einen Stift und ein Papier holen. Wir haben das auch schon probiert mit Screens. Sie können sozusagen auch ihre eigene, your own space, create your own space in between the screen and you, so sitting in front of the screen. So take a sheet of paper and a stencil, and not a stencil. Sage ich immer, es ist die falsche Vokabel. No. Genau, stencil hast du schon. Ja, it's wrong. So, was brauchst du noch? Okay, thank you. So, genau. Und die Einladung ist jetzt, eine Karte zu zeichnen, to draw a map of genau. Und eine Karte hat ein Thema, hat einen Titel. Geht um zum Beispiel, und unsere Karte ist eigentlich dieses, wie kam ich hierher? Das ist auch eine Möglichkeit anzufangen, so, how did I get here? So you can take it literally, so which way? But you can also think about what relations, what people, what somehow took you here? What brought you here? Or what did you do that you came here? Also darüber sozusagen diesen Weg zum einen, aber auch diese Verbindungen, also Erfahrungen, ein Thema, das einen hier auch trifft. Vielleicht hat man auch Erfahrungen hier schon gemacht. Probably you have already been here. Und dann auch diese Erfahrungen vielleicht auch auszudehnen auf diesen öffentlichen Raum. Das kann in Wien sein, aber es kann auch ganz woanders sein. So ihre Erfahrungen mit öffentlichem Raum, in öffentlichem Raum, die sie jetzt auch, also was auch öffentlicher Raum oder auch die Monumente über Gesellschaften sagen, wie sie das auch erlebt haben, oder ich rede schon wieder nur auf sie, wie du das auch erlebt hast, genau. Und es ist, eine Karte zeichnen ist ganz einfach. Es reicht auch ein Kritzelei und man kann etwas dazu schreiben. So drawing a map is quite simple. You can make a kritzi-kratzi and then you write something. Because you can choose everything. And we are not doing maps that everybody can read. It's a personal map. You develop symbols for things. You bring different places into this place, different experiences in this place. And that's why we have done a second step where we exchange, where we talk about the maps. So everybody, and you show your map to another person and you have to talk about your map. That's also, and you can always tell another story. That's the super thing with the map, that you can again and again talk about what you've drawn, what you have thought of. And it's your map, so it's what you choose is important on your map. And that's then big or not or so. Ja? Braucht wer noch Hilfe, Anmerkungen? Wisst ihr? Ja, gerne. Auf Deutsch oder auf Englisch? In Englisch. Okay. Das weiß ich auch schon gar nicht mehr. Die Idee ist, dass Sie eine Karte zeichnen, jetzt auch von diesem, Sie können ausgehen von dem Ort, wo wir hier sind, also wie man auch hierher gekommen ist, vielleicht auch mit welchem Interesse bin ich hierher gekommen, welche Ideen, welche Wünsche vielleicht auch. Und dann auch das zu verbinden mit dem, was man dann hier erlebt hat und woran man das auch verbindet mit eigenen Erfahrungen, was eigene von anderen Plätzen auch hereinkommt. Zu sagen, das ist eine kognitive Karte zu diesem Thema auch, also auch zu den schönen 2 Fragen eigentlich. So, was erzählen uns öffentliche Orte über die Gesellschaft? Welche Gespräche starten Statuen und Monumente? Also Sie können auch ein Gespräch zum Beispiel auch kartieren zwischen sich und einem Monument oder auch, ja. Hat das geholfen? Ja? Ah, super. Ja?
Are the English speakers clear on what you need to explanation really quickly? So, yeah, so basically think of places, it can either within your own experiences and map it out to whatever comes to mind. It can be something related to a monument, it can be a space that's contested, etc., but it's your own personal map. So it's up to you what it is that comes to your mind and you express and draw onto your page. And the idea is that after about 20 minutes of us looking and thinking through and drawing the maps that we shared with one another in small groups, and then anybody that wants to volunteer and talk about what's on their map can do so. But if you want to do it in relation to monuments, you can. If there's something else speaking to you right now that you want to draw about, you can also do that, but it's up to you. But the idea is places, spaces, things of that nature. Does that make more clear?
When it's not easy.
Yeah.
Genau. Yeah, yes. You can think it like that. And when you don't know how to start, you can start where you sit and think, okay, what have I seen? And how did I get here? And what did it reminded me of? And then bring this all in this map and to have your special place then there. Yeah?
Just go for it.
And it develops by drawing. So the process of drawing makes you think and draw. minutes, and then it's too much. Yeah, too long. Too much. 4 minutes later. No, just to say that finish to come to an end. So it's 3 minutes or so. But it's, yeah, it's okay.
I did my homework.
Okay, you're ready. Okay. So then, when you feel like you're fine, you can end. I mean, it's not too, but I don't want to make pressure also. Fine. So, and the next step would be to find a partner for having a dialogue about the map and with the maps, and and the suggestion is to do it like that one shows the map and explains what is marked, what is registered, what's on the map, and the other one can ask. So when something is not clear, something is not mentioned, so then you ask for it. And there might be also be symbols you don't want to talk about. So if it's somebody asks for that, and you then it's always free to say, okay, that's something that's for me, and I don't talk about. So because you have your own symbols on that, yeah. So and we do this. So you think you know with whom you are going to do the dialogue? You have someone for the dialogue? And then, and then we do some 3 minutes each. So for one time, so, you look for a partner, and hast du schon jemanden, oder? Okay, sonst machen wir zwei. And you show to each other the maps and talk about, because you have to signify what the symbols that are not clear. And so, that's good, they got it. like some. So I think so with the time, huh? You feel like. Yeah. So.
There's a table over there, or we can put it outside, or I can put them out there. Or we can put it on the back table, or we can just do it in the lobby. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Hi guys. We're coming back slowly, but surely coming back. Great. Thank you. So, how did y'all feel about the activity? Good? Nice? Chill? Yeah? Cool. So, we were just wondering, like, if anyone wanted to share what's on their map, what they thought about it, if you mapped anything in the context of the talk, or you just kind of went your own way. Like, we'd love to hear about your different perspectives that you took. And there's a microphone behind. Yeah. And the brown bag right there. Can you see? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, never mind.
So my map was I took it quite literally. So I drew the continent of Africa, South America, and Europe, the UK, and like highlighted Austria and Germany, and these things, like Brazil in particular, Africa, like slaves taken to Brazil, and then obviously I left Sierra Leone to come to the UK because of war, and now I'm in this country. So these are all parts of like myself. But Brazil, kind of this connection to Brazil was really important to me because of a recent conflict that I've had. That I had a conflict with a friend, and they told me that they loved me as just a friend, not romantic partner, a male friend who in a Brazilian restaurant told me like, oh yeah, I really care about you, you're such a lovely person, you've really helped me grow out of my racism, and thank you so much for like just being you and not kind of like giving in to my bullshit. And I was, yeah, okay, happy to help, happy to be of service, great. And this is a friend that I really trusted, etc. And later on I felt very betrayed by them, and I thought about the symbolism of being in a Brazilian restaurant, and like it felt there's this kind of surface levelness to this guy, my former friend, and like I think about in Brazil, like the race relations there, how there's also a denial about the racism that black people face, and how there's so many white women walking around with really big butts, like the famous Brazilian butt, and that's a lot to do with like the rape of African women, and then like encouraging their children to marry white, so that eventually their descendants will be white, because this was like a way out of, well, whatever it was, like oppression, and how this is now, it's really symbolic of the whole, like, we want everything that's black but not the skin tone or all the hard bits, like we want the ass, we want the like nice shape. And this friend of mine, he's dating a Brazilian, and we were in a Brazilian thing, and his friendship felt so, and his kind of understanding of race and what it means to be an ally felt so surface level. And so, yeah, this is what my map meant to to me like Brazil, and it's like it's also in denial about race, but how so many aspects of blackness are fetishized within Brazilian culture, but then it's not really accepted. Blackness is not fully accepted, and he's dating a Brazilian woman who's lovely, who is very, very lovely, but it's all very, so this particular restaurant in Vienna, and it's being Brazilian, like there are lots of Sierra Leoneans in Brazil, like ancestry-wise. There have been documentaries about that, and how we're all kind of, England, Brazil, Sierra Leone, Vienna, all that connection.
Thank you. Yeah, I think like that's a really interesting like way to connect it on a world map, and like emphasizing like your own personalized spaces. And I think like it's also really nice actually that you were able to kind of edge through these really personal things like through this activity as well, and like kind of connect it to racialization, because it is something that we experience on a regular basis. If you're someone who is a racialized person, these dynamics kind of show up quite often in your everyday life, regardless of, it's not really necessarily always blatant things, but it can also be sort of under the surface, insidious type of experiences. So I think it's really nice that you were able to get that out through your mapping process. Yeah, thank you for sharing with us, seriously. Anyone else want to share their maps? Don't be shy, yeah?
I am shy.
That's okay.
There is a but.
Hello, and thank you for such a wonderful event, because it's the first experience of interacting with people, for me at least, and it was funny, and I learned a lot from my lovely partner. So while I was looking at your short movie, it was very difficult for me to not to cry, because you did something that difficult. Oh God. I deeply want to do in my country. There are hundreds of monuments that I was talking to her that, being around those monuments while you are completely free physically, you feel that you are in prison, because you feel that those monuments are observing you. And I think at least 90% of people hate all those monuments, but they have to tolerate being and living at those streets and looking at them. And it's a very deep feeling to look at people who successfully remove the thing that they don't want to be. So the thing that I select for myself as a plan, as a map, actually is not a real map. Is the only thing that it's in my country that when I think about the country, I think about that place. It wasn't monument when it was created. It was a building. The name of the building is Freedom, and it's located in a square, a very, very big square, which named Freedom Square. And so after the revolution, during these 40 years, it became a monument for people, because looking at that building, which is the only place that is not ruined yet, you remember the time that you were free. So it's the only place in my country that at least I can say it's a very wonderful monument. And during the revolution last year, many young couples went there and danced, and they captured by the government. And so it's one of my biggest dreams to dance at that square one day in Freedom Square while I feel free, So, yeah, just to talk about that country. Thank you. Could you guess?
Is it Iran? Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I have goosebumps right now, so I'm just gonna take a moment to but thank you so much for sharing that with. Yeah, I'm emotional now too. Is there anyone else that would like to share? Yeah.
I was thinking of the map. The first thing that came to my mind is the idea of the map itself and how it came into being. I know it's important, but there are a lot of things engraved to it in relation to colonization, and those explorers go there and extract a lot of things. But I was also thinking of the 1884 Berlin Conference, scrambled for Africa and all the things. And I'm just sharing my mind map than what I've been drawing here, actually. So I was also thinking of some roundabouts back home that are taken by corporates because they said that they could beautify the roundabouts with all the money they have so that they could own the roundabouts to put their statues, their whatever advertisement is. So there was an intervention made by an Ethiopian artist. He just passed away recently. His name is Mulgeta Gabrekidan. He did some intervention on a Samsung monument right at the middle of the city, Addis Ababa. And also I came back to Vienna and thinking of this imperial city, how the city is being built with a lot of statues and monuments. And I went to the statue of Marcos of Homafuma, and I feel like I start to, and then I came back to myself and let me start from where I sit, and that's how I start to draw what was happening here in the room, and how questions and answers are being flown here, and I have all these key symbols to the side and where you can navigate. But I was also at the same time thinking of the things that were not said within the audience, apart from what were already being asked and answered. So, and as an example, you can also relate to my sister over there from Iran. Talks about a lot of stories. So I'm sure we all have those stories within than what has been discussed here. Those are the mind maps that I've been really going through a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, actually that's really great, kind of thinking about what is said in a room and then what's the silences in the room, what are the things that we're not okay with sharing or not feeling prepared to share, or that we don't have space to share, fears, So I think also that's also interesting how those things also show up on people's personal maps, or might not even show up but are here when we're having discourse. Yeah. Thank you. Maybe one more share, if anyone else would like to. Oh, there's one there. Okay, perfect.
Mic check, cool. So I made a map where Africa is in the middle. Basically, I did 2 maps where it was supposed to be in the middle, but it wasn't really, so I did another one. But my point is, maps were drawn by European settlers. That's quite known in geography and in geographical history. So I just did a map where the proportions of the continents are actually the real ones, where Europe looks a bit smaller, the American continent as well. And, with a couple arrows saying, okay, most migrations that happened through history were actually migrations from the south to the north. That's what we are made to believe. But the north also moved a lot to the south for different reasons, to for material reasons mostly and economic reasons. So yeah, that's my map. I also put a little, some symbols around, asking, is the North really what we, like, is the North really up there? And you then made the comment, hey, are you a flat earther? But it's just that the North-South concept is very much subjective, and that's what I wanted to show in my map, basically. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. I think we can leave it, I guess. Yeah. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'm so impressed. So because for me it's so many different things are going on in a space like this, and I'm always like, really impressed and also overwhelmed somehow, and it's, I don't know how you feel, but if the drawing process also processed your thinking of also with the film and how to relate with it. I mean, that's the idea of the mapping in this way, that to find own relations to what happened in this space, where what I've been watching at, and then also to have something in your hand you can exchange. And the thing is, when you take the map with you, you have a super note to remember this event in a very different way than to have written notes. And you can talk about your map in different ways. So when you talk about your map, next time you did made other experiences in the meanwhile, you can put it in the narration of the map, because the map reminds you also of these legs and things like that. And I don't know how you, and again and again, Do you want to say something about the prepping? Also, after showing the film, not watching, because you also you're the one person you showed it, and then had the mapping.
Yeah, I mean, it was really funny because I was trying to then, in my map, I was trying to put myself and think about the monuments that are in Vienna. And I also thought about the monument that was at Platz, and I got kind of frustrated because I think a lot of people don't know what that monument is for, and it's commemorating the death of a black person that was killed here in Vienna in the early 2000s. But I think the way that people interact with that space sometimes is a bit disrespectful. Like, people climb on the monument, they stand, there's really but there's also no space for contextualization with it as well. And so then it kind of put me in not the best place, so I tried to think of places that I really like in Vienna. So I put Villa Vida, which is a really cool cafe here. I put Pam, which is also the best place in Vienna to get bagels. Shout out to them. It's delicious. It's on Siebensteinstraße, on Kirchengasse, that corner. I'm really serious about them. They're fantastic. You should go get you should absolutely get a bagel there. Then I thought of Biergarten. I really love Biergarten a lot, to go there and just chill and sit. And then I went back to thinking about memorials again, and this idea of the first district, and kind of connected to what Myree was saying earlier about kind of the imperial histories around a lot of the monuments themselves, but also there are some pretty beautiful monuments there as well. Like, one of my favorite monuments here, actually, architecturally, and also the history behind it, is in the Jewish Quarter. There's a really beautiful monument that's in the shape of a bookcase, and I remember when I first visited Vienna in 2018, so before I lived here, that's one of the monuments that we visited, and I was really impacted as well, and I thought the architecture and the way in which it commemorates that event is a really beautiful way, and it's a really like strong and powerful monument. So like me wanting to thinking of ways like going back to your question, how can we use these spaces now that they're empty? What do we replace them with? And like thinking about ways in my context, what memorials can be as beautiful as that, or commemorate events that way in a respectful way, you know? So yeah, I was thinking about that. And yeah, just other places that make me happy in Vienna, because it's, I work with a lot of really difficult subject matter in my work, and so also giving myself space to think about places that bring me joy, and that was my map. And the experience of showing the film was cool. This is the first time I've ever actually shown a film in public where it's just mine. So that was really cool. So thanks for being here. So it was a really cool experience. Yeah, I really loved it a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mikki and I were thinking we'd love to see y'all's maps all together. So I guess after, if you have time, to put it on the table so we can just take a look at all of them visually, but we don't have to go into a whole explanation or anything, but just kind of getting an idea of how people think and what they put on their maps. And
thank you for sharing this evening, and thank you for all this, for this wonderful film, and for your this also the discussion. I'm very happy.
Me too.
You did this, and it's also like also to make steps, like to do things, and have a look. Okay, does it work? Does it not work? What did work, and what can one experience? And probably we make really an open ending. So we go to in the other room there, and we find a table, and we put the maps on the table, and where we can go around would be great. Yeah. Oh, to you too. Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.